Well, what's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with week 5 of the NFL season. We are already a quarter of the way through the year. I can't believe it. Where does the time go? But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into week 5. And before I do so, I'm not going to completely abandon my cheat sheet, but I do have a new tool that I have not published yet that I want to run through for this week. I think it'll be very valuable. So before we get to that, I'll just spend 1 second here on the cheat sheet because I think it's worth pointing out. I think it was last week I said, oh my gosh, there's 4 games that have a 50-point or higher total from Vegas. I'm stunned by that. That's so many games. Yeah, there's 7 this week. Ladies and gentlemen, scoring is up in the NFL. Get ready for it. It's going to take 250 points, 300 points, 350 points to win the contest that you are playing. It's not going away anytime soon. So this tool that I've created, and I haven't released it yet. I haven't published it yet because, quite frankly, if you're looking at it right now, it's pretty ugly. This is the raw data, and I really just need to make this pretty, make it a little more user-friendly, and then I'll release it. So what you're looking at here is, or if you're listening, I'll describe it to you. It is a tool that I've broken down fantasy points by pass attempt for quarterbacks, touches for running backs, and targets for wide receivers and tight ends. So basically, I'm looking at how many fantasy points per pass attempt each defense gives up. I have the logs of every game here in the middle, and then I have who they're going to be playing this week. So let's kind of go through a couple of these just as an example, and this will kind of cover our normal quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end type of flow that we would go through here. So let's start with quarterbacks. So we have New Orleans gives up 0.89 fantasy points per pass attempt. That's not technically drop back. It is technically an attempt. Okay, so 0.89. So if I click on their name, you can see here are the 4 quarterbacks they've faced. Eli Manning, Matt Ryan, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Tyrod Taylor. You can see Eli Manning was only just under 0.4 fantasy points per attempt last week. And it was Matt Ryan and Fitzpatrick who shredded them for, 1.2 and 1.6 fantasy points per attempt, respectively. So this is a chance where what I'm trying to do is really, this is step 1 of normalizing the data, right? Get everybody on an even playing field of pass attempts. And then you can take pass attempts and you can say, okay, well, if, I don't know who a good example is. Matt Ryan usually throws the ball 35 times and he scores 1 point per pass attempt. If he throws it 40 times, is he going to score 40 points, right? So you can start projecting these things out. So for this week, if you look at New Orleans again, facing Alex Smith from Washington. So Alex Smith's $5,700, but if we go back and look at Alex Smith, basically his ceiling this year is the same rate that New Orleans gives up, right? So Alex Smith, I'm a little bit concerned because he doesn't have a lot of upside here. So here's Alex Smith. His best game was 0.89 fantasy points per pass. Then he was 0.65 and 0.83, which is basically what New Orleans allows. Now, I guess you could argue that if his points per pass attempt is what the worst defense gives up, I guess that's pretty good. I guess we could expect to see a tick up there for only $5,700. All right, so we'll skip skip Tampa Bay because they have the week off, and we'll go to Pittsburgh here, allowing 0.78 DraftKings points per pass attempt. That's the 3rd worst in the league. They get Matt Ryan this week. So if you remember back on the cheat sheet, I believe this total was 57. I'll have to go back and look up the last time we had an NFL game with a total of 57 or more. That's pretty significant. Matt Ryan, he's having a great year, right? That Atlanta offense looks like it's back. Mahomes has shredded Pittsburgh. Joe Flacco scored 25 points. Tyrod Taylor scored 24.5. I mean, no quarterback has scored less than 24.5 DraftKings points on the Pittsburgh offense this year. I don't expect Matt Ryan to be the first. So if we look up Matt Ryan's just logs here, here we go. 3 games where he scored at least 0.83 fantasy points per pass attempt, which would essentially be an elite rate in the league, and then 2 games where he went 1.1 and 1.2. So he's having a hell of a year. He only laid that egg against Philadelphia in week 1. The last 3 weeks, he's been absolutely awesome. Where else do we go? I think, let's see, the Chargers here were a little bit interesting, right? Okay, yeah. So Chargers are 5th worst in the league on fantasy points allowed per pass attempt. Derek Carr is the opponent for this week, and if we go back and look at Derek Carr, I mean, first of all, actually, let me even stop there. Chargers are 5th worst in the NFL in fantasy points per opposing pass attempt. They have faced Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes, okay, Josh Allen and CJ Beathard. That is certainly not a gauntlet of opposing quarterbacks by any stretch of the imagination. Now you're going to get Derek Carr, who I'm not a particularly big Derek Carr fan, but what I do love about him is the volume, right? Here's his 4 games. They throw the ball a ton. No worse than 32 times in any game. 32, 39, 40, and 58. That was the overtime game, so that one skews it a little bit. But, not unrealistic for David Carr to throw the ball 40-plus times against the Chargers this week. That seems like, I don't want to say a no-brainer, but he's $5,200. He's in a really good spot. All right, and I will just scroll down to the bottom here because I want to show you the bottom half of this too. Baltimore has been really, really good against opposing quarterbacks. 0.34 DraftKings points, a third of a point per pass attempt this season. Basically, they've only allowed more than 15 or 16 fantasy points once. It was against Andy Dalton. Ben Roethlisberger scored 15. Case Keenum 6.6. Josh Allen 5.5. Nathan Peterman in that first game. Before he left, he was in negative points. So this might be a bit skewed, but this is an excellent defense. Baker Mayfield has his hands full this week. And then we get a couple of interesting ones down here as well. Second best in the league is Washington. So, listen, I love Drew Brees. He's having a great year. Almost always roster him at home, right? I mean, there's just a lot to love there. He's going for the NFL record for passing yards, so they're going to be all amped up to throw the ball. But I've got some pause here because Washington allows the second lowest rate per pass attempt in the league. They've held, let's see, Aaron Rodgers under 20 points, Andrew Luck under 14 points, and the great Sam Bradford. No, I'm just kidding. Sam Bradford stinks. Under 5 points. And they've had a week to prepare. Okay, this is the Monday night game. It's the extra long week. I've got some pause here. I think Drew Brees can be fine. I'm just wondering what his ceiling is. And I think that he's more likely to lay a dud than be a stud, if that makes sense. Like he's closer to the bottom end of his range than the top in my opinion. All right. Jacksonville's also on here because they're the 3rd best team and they get Patrick Mahomes. So now you have to decide, what are you going to do with Patrick Mahomes, right? Super impressive against Denver on the road. To kind of put this into perspective, Denver's got basically the 12th best rate here. Jacksonville's the 3rd best, and it's pretty significant. So I don't know what you want to do with Mahomes, but we are going to find out. And we already are finding out that this kid's a stud. But again, just a little bit of pause, right? I'm not going to go overboard on these two guys because they're in such horrible situations. Right, we can pick our spots. It's daily fantasy. It's weekly. We don't have to, season long just roster these guys every single week. All right, so I actually wanted to pause there because I felt like I didn't do a great job of laying a baseline for what good numbers might be or what bad numbers might be. So now I've got up on the screen a chart of fantasy points per pass attempt, per targets, and per touch. And what I'll do is I'll just show you the quarterbacks here. So if we sort by quarterback and ignore the small sample size guys at the top, Mahomes leads the way, right, as we would expect. 0.9 DraftKings points per pass attempt. That's 138 pass attempts. It's great. Ryan Fitzpatrick's actually number 2, and Cam Newton's number 3, despite having only 95 passing attempts. That's because he can run the ball. So no surprise to see those guys there. So basically, if you're looking for elite guys, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Mahomes down to Phillip Rivers are 0.65 DraftKings points per pass attempt or more. Then there's actually a gap to Andy Dalton at 6.0. So basically, the closer you get to like 3/4 of a fantasy point, you're really, really elite. Anything getting up into like above that or even bearing down on 1 point per pass attempt is insane. Mahomes having that insane type season, zero point 0.9 DraftKings points per pass attempt. So that's to show you that. Actually, if we sort by the pass attempts, you'll see that the big volume guys, Cousins, Luck, Roethlisberger, Joe Flacco, they're the league leaders in pass attempts. They all hover around the half a point per pass attempt. Flip this over to wide receiver, or I'm sorry, we'll do wide receivers real quick. And we'll go points per target, and we probably need to sort by some of the elite guys here. So you'll see Deshaun Jackson and Calvin Ridley nearing 4 points per target, but again, small sample size, only 21 and 22 targets on the year. If we sort by targets, we get guys like Adam Thielen, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, right? So Adam Thielen leads the way at 2 fantasy points per target. So that's kind of like your real elite baseline number. That's where I'd like to see the volume. 1.5 is great. 1 for wide receivers, probably not all that good. If we look at tight ends, kind of a similar type thing here. You see a much larger range of outcomes. Zach Ertz is about 1.5 point per target. Jared Cook is 2.3. Travis Kelce is 2. So you see there's a wider range here. Again, that 1 to 2 number is great. Actually, in a lot of tight ends, believe it or not, despite how bad the tight end position has been, a lot of these guys kind of hit value, right? Because they're so cheap. So really, almost everyone in here is between 1 and 2 fantasy points per target. When you get over 2, there's only a handful of those guys, right? Cook, Kelce, Kittle, Gronk, Kyle Rudolph, Trey Burton, Tyler Eifert, who's now out, OJ Howard. So those are the guys who have a significant amount of targets that are all over 2. And then if we go to the workhorses as far as touches go, and I guess we should look at running backs for this. Gurley, 94 touches, 1.2 DraftKings points per touch. Kamara's obviously the elite guy, 1.6, right? So for running backs, this is obviously rushes and this is reception, so it's a touch. 1.6 for Kamara is absolutely elite. Someone like, let's see, Marshawn Lynch, who gets a lot of volume, but has to do it just 0.86 points per touch. He's essentially half of what Alvin Kamara is. So you can see how this chart works its way up. The pass catching running backs obviously more valuable. Christian McCaffrey's a point per touch, and TJ Yeldon as well, a point per touch, which leads me to kind of where we're going next here. So when we get into running backs, and excuse me here, this it's a pretty ugly chart. I'll fix this. The teams that allow the most points to running backs as far as touches go, Kansas City, no surprise, 1.3. They're getting Jacksonville this week. I haven't seen the news. I doubt Leonard Fournette plays in this game, right? Like, I think we're going to get a big TJ Yeldon game, or a big usage from TJ Yeldon in a really good spot, right? So Yeldon, $5,600. He's a 1 point per touch player. He's getting Kansas City, who gives up the most points to, opposing running backs as far as per touch goes. Atlanta. Let's see who they've got. Okay, they've got the Steelers. So it's going to be James Conner, who, quite honestly, after week 1 has really disappointed. But what Atlanta is susceptible to is pass catching running backs. We've seen Conner hold his own in the pass game. This could be a good week to bounce back. He's $7,500. You'll have to decide whether that's a price that you want to pay or not. But I wouldn't kill you for it. This Oakland-LA game is going to score a ton of points. Melvin Gordon's on that list as well. Okay, here's one I really like. Aaron Jones. I don't know if we saw him on my list here. Let's see if I can find Aaron Jones, because I think this is worth the look. All right, Aaron Jones, only 19 touches this year. 1.1 fantasy point per touch, which, as you saw, is better than TJ Yeldon. It is better than Zeke this year. It's better than Christian McCaffrey. Obviously a small sample size, right? He's only has 19 touches. Sorry, I was trying to calculate if that would be correct. I guess it is because he only has 19 touches. This feels like a really good spot, right? $4,300 going against Detroit, who allows over a point per touch to opposing running backs, the fifth worst in the league. Like the guys that, like, let's see who has beat up Detroit in a big way, like Isaiah Crowell, Rex Burkhead, James White, Matt Breida, Zeke, Alfred Morris. Like, these aren't all studs, right? I mean, I think the Detroit run defense is just really, really bad. And now Aaron Jones gets a favorable matchup, and they are, let's see. Oh my God. 1.5 point favorites with a 51 point total. Yeah, I'll be targeting all the Aaron Jones that I can get. And then we'll go down here to targets. And let's see, Houston allowing, Houston's defense not very good, no surprise. Allowing a lot of points per target. Let's see here. There we go. 2.5 points per target. They're getting Dallas this week. Oh, I have this set to tight ends. Hang with me 1 second. I'll fix this. Or actually, I guess we'll just do tight ends while we're here. Then we'll go back to wide receivers. So they get Dallas, who does not really have a tight end threat, right? They've got no one. Jeff Swaim, I guess, is there. Like, I'm not playing any tight end. Unfortunately, we're wasting Houston this week. Ricky Seals-Jones gets the second best matchup against San Francisco. Why is this not popping up here? There we go. Sorry, as you can see, I'm working out the details here. So Ricky Seals-Jones gets the good matchup against San Francisco, who has basically allowed 22 points to Travis Kelce, 10 points to Antonio Gates. They're not seeing a lot of targets, but they are allowing a lot of points. Tampa Bay doesn't play this week. Denver, nope, not touching that. Carolina's back in action. Who do we have here? Evan Ingram. Okay, that could be good. Let's see here. Kansas City's always in play, right, when it comes to tight ends. Okay, so this is interesting. And we kind of know about this, right? Kansas City's defense gives up a lot of points one way or another. But 31 targets to opposing tight ends. That's a lot. George Kittle had 7, turned him into 14 points. Jesse James had 5, turned him into 27 points. Austin Seferian-Jenkins gets the nod for Jacksonville at 2,900 this week. That's a pretty good number. We got to be able to find somebody a little bit better than this, right? Kittle. Oh, there you go. Kittle again. Kittle finally had that big game, right? That big game we were looking for. He's 5,400 this week, it's got to be the most expensive he's been all year. But Arizona, remember there was a time you just fired up whatever tight end was playing against Arizona? Still probably viable. They're like the 7th worst defense in points allowed per target. Jordan Reed scored 15 points on him on 5 targets. George Kittle is going to be clearly I shouldn't say clearly because Trey Burton was involved here too, but very likely the best tight end that they've seen this season. And they're already bad as it is. All right, let me switch this over to wide receivers real quick. All right, back on wide receivers. New Orleans giving up 2.7 DraftKings points per target. Not good, but Washington doesn't really have a great wide receiving core, right? They kind of spread it around. Nobody's more than $4,500. Paul Richardson and Jamison Crowder lead the way, but I'm not thrilled to really roster those guys. The Chargers, again, I mean, we talked about Derek Carr. Pair him with any of your favorite Oakland wide receivers, or least favorite, I guess I should say. Tennessee pops up for the first time here, but with the 4th worst points allowed per target. But unfortunately, Buffalo doesn't have anybody that we'd probably be interested in. I guess I could throw a dart on Kelvin Benjamin, but not so much. Now, Minnesota is interesting, right? Because Minnesota is allowing the 5th most points per target to opposing wide receivers here, and they get Philly. So Alshon Jeffrey looked pretty good in his first game back last week. I expect him to just plug right in, be the type of receiver that we thought he was as Carson Wentz gets back into shape again. Like, it's, guy hasn't played in a long time. It's just kind of getting back into the swing of things, kind of what we've seen with Deshaun Watson. This could be a really good spot. What's the total on this game? 45, Phillies 3-point favorites. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't terrible. It's more of a defensive battle compared to the rest of the games that we have on the slate, but I don't mind targeting Minnesota wide receivers. Indianapolis is here, and it is literally just throw a dart at whichever one of these New England wide receivers you think, right? Josh Gordon up to $5,800, Julian Edelman back at $5,500, Chris Hogan still exists at $45, Cordero Patterson caught a touchdown last week. Like, throw a dart on these guys, but they are Indy's such a good defense to target. Where else can we go? Here's the Philly defense, which hasn't been nearly as good as what we expected. They're probably 6-9, like 11th worst in the league. Getting both Thielen and Diggs. We saw how efficient Thielen has been this season. Diggs has been great too. You could throw a dart on even someone like Laquan Treadwell, who I hate for all the drops, but probably played his best game of the season last week. He was involved more, converted a couple big third downs late in the game. So you could probably find some value in that game as well. All right, there you go. That's week 5, and it was completely different. Thanks for bearing with me. I apologize. This is all brand new to me, but I could not wait to show you the new tool. I'm going to pretty this up, and I'm going to release it, so keep an eye out on my Twitter. It's at DFS On Demand for when I post this, but I'll make it pretty. But I think it's going to be really cool because we can break down, pass attempts, touches, targets, and it's really just the start. Let me know what else you want to see here because I'm still in the process of building this. So tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand or leave a comment below. I'll talk to you guys. Good luck.